All right. 'Tis I, Monaco, coming to you with our fourth unit of study on chemical bonding. This unit, we're going to cover some basic topics like the octet rule, modeling bonding with Lewis structures, the nomenclature, which is a fancy word for, say, how we name chemical compounds and molecules. We're also going to look at the bond type and chemical and physical properties, so like how the character of the bond determines the properties of the compounds. We're going to look at the big overarching idea of how electronegativity of the elements affects the bonding between the atoms and in turn affects the bond character, the bond type, and then of course the chemical and physical properties of those particular compounds and molecules. And we're going to look briefly at intermolecular forces, which is how how molecules interact with each other. So how one molecule can affect another molecule, okay, just by its shape and charges and stuff, okay? So let's hit up our overarching themes, learning targets, and the overall assignment. So how and why do elements combine to form compounds is a big question. We're going to answer that in our bell works. What are the properties of the compounds that are formed as a result? How are the compounds different because of the way the atoms combined, okay? And then how do molecules interact with each other? So if I've got a molecule of this and a molecule of that, do they want to play games? How do they affect each other, etc.? So let's hit up our essential questions. First, why and how do elements combine to make chemical bonds? Well, there's a picture telling you there's ionic and covalence. Okay, well, why and how? There's transfer and sharing of electrons, and the why is, why would they bother doing this? We're going to hit that up with our octet rule. How do the way atoms combine to form bonds lead to the properties of the compounds that are formed? I gave you a little hint when I said electronegativity differences determines bond character, and bond character determines the properties of a compound. So the different types of bonds lead to different properties of substances. Okay, and there's a quick pictorial breakdown of some of the things that we're going to see. And very, very interesting picture. I like that a lot. Mr. Milks found a great one there. How do molecules interact with each other? So we got some funky symbols next to these water molecules, but these are truth. Okay, a water molecule behaves a certain way when it's around other water molecules because of the shape of the molecule and the electronegativity differences between the elements that are bonded in that particular molecule. So we're going to learn a little bit about hydrogen bonding and intermolecular forces. Let's hit up our ICANs, our learning targets, and I really want you to paraphrase these, maybe pause it in between because these tend to be a little bit longer. Why atoms react to form chemical bonds and compounds. You want to be able to explain that. I can. I want you to also be able to say, I can model how different atoms form different ions in order to become stable using Lewis dot diagrams, etc. We're going to do that. I want you to be able to say, I can explain the relationship between energy and bond formation. So I can say that breaking a bond requires energy. Making a bond releases energy. I want you to also be able to say that I can draw models of the bonding in ionic and covalent compounds using Lewis structures. I'll show you how to do that in a couple videos. I want you to be able to say I can use the nomenclature rules, so how to name ionic and covalent compounds given a formula. So I want you to say I can tell you what the name of that chemical formula is just by looking at it. I want you to be able to say that I can use the charge cancellation rules to find the chemical formula for an ionic compound given just the name. So looking at the name of the chemical, I can then use these rules to tell you what the formula must be. Going on, I had to put another slide in here because you're going to run out of space. Again, big words, paraphrase. I can identify a compound's bond as ionic, covalent, or metallic based upon the properties of conductivity, malleability, melting point, and hardness for that compound. This is a laboratory-based activity. We're going to do some assays, which are tests, for ionic or covalent compounds. There's specific tests that give you specific results that can tell you specifically this white powder is ionic and that white powder is covalent. Otherwise, I would not really have been able to tell. I want you to be able to say that I can use that electronegativity difference between the elements in a bond to tell me or tell anybody if the nature of the bond is ionic, polar covalent, or nonpolar covalent. So you'll be able to say, I can tell you what type of bond that is between these two atoms using electronegativity. I want you to be able to say, I can use that electronegativity and the shape of the molecule, its symmetry, to tell you if the overall molecule is polar or nonpolar. So you got a 2I cans there. I can tell you if the bond itself between two atoms is polar, nonpolar, or ionic based upon electronegativity. And I can tell you if looking at the whole molecule itself, if it's polar, nonpolar, based upon electronegativity and symmetry. I can also understand how molecules will interact with each other, creating intermolecular forces of attraction, and how these forces lead to bulk properties of substances. So I want you to be able to look at a molecule and say, it looks like that molecule is going to have some intermolecular forces with other molecules of its same type, which would lead to the following things. Okay? Now, there's the assignments. Looks pretty big, but it's not actually. This unit's shorter than the previous units. So there's homeworks. There's 10 of them total. There's vocabulary quizzes, Pogles. I think there's 2 Pogles, maybe 3. 2 Pogles. Yeah, 2 Pogles. A lab, practice pages, 2 modeling, 2 labs, and a project, adopt a chemical compound. Of course, our Castle online quiz, Castle self-study, and a unit exam. So that's it, but there's no practice pages for this particular homework. You've already started in class working on the unit's pre-assessment. I take all those overarching themes and put them in a Google Doc and ask you to go do the research there. So please complete that Google document. That is a preview of all the unit's themes and targets. Okay, and try your best. And thanks for watching. Next one coming.